So I'm going to do a video a little bit different this time and share with you something that kind of popped into my scope of awareness as I was sitting at the table playing Legos with my 3-year-old boy. And here's sort of what happened is we sat down and he wanted to play Legos, so we sat down together and he started putting the platform pieces all sort of on the table, and I just handed him Legos and he would kind of put them wherever. Didn't really matter. He just enjoyed, you know, connecting the Legos to the platform piece and so on. And it sort of occurred to me that a child, when a child plays, when we play, he's not playing for any sort of goal. You know, there's no outcome in mind. There's no desired achievement. It's that, you know, he's playing to play. They play to play. And we sat there for about an hour and a half, and we were just kind of laughing and having fun. And we were working together. I handed him the Legos. He would put them where he wanted to, and then he would ask for a color, and I'd give him the color. And it sort of the game evolved into whatever it was going to evolve into, and it was fun. And that's how the universe communicates. That's the language of this place. And the easiest way to really tap into this language is to picture yourself sort of zoom out. Picture like a drone with a camera that's elevating up above you and sort of looking down at what you're doing. And without any sound necessarily, or let's say without any language, this camera is able to see that, you know, you're working together with your son or your child or somebody else, and your energy is good, you're smiling, you're happy, you're having a good time. And that's really all that matters. It's just the process. It's playing to play. And the same thing can be seen when if you hand a child a basketball and you're standing next to a basketball hoop, he may have more fun putting the ball on the ground and kicking it and running around yelling that he has the ball and you don't. You know, it's not, there's not a structure in place where you're playing against them. You're not trying to score points. You're not trying to win. You're just playing to play. And as adults, we've sort of been programmed away from that. But what seems important, or what I really wanted to get out in this video, is that that's the language of the universe. And everything gets to be very clear when you're able to see this language, when you're able to perceive what's happening. I'll give you an example in the workplace. Actually, I'll give you a couple examples. The first one is that it really didn't matter in my job or my career. I basically worked with homes and design and renovations and that kind of thing. So I had in 13 years, I had several repeat customers and so on, and I got very used to the cycles of things. But one of the cycles was, it didn't matter how well the store was doing, it didn't matter how much we sold, it didn't matter how much better we did this month than ever before. The numbers literally did not matter. The numbers failed to matter, and the process was always the same. It went like this. The owner of the company would show up at the store, and within a short period of time, he would find something to bitch about. And then he would pretty much rip everybody out that was within the range of his voice and his perception. He would holler at them, scream at them, tell them they were stupid, tell them to get on the phone, call their customers, close the deals, stop lying, stop being lazy, blah, 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 blah. And it resembled, to me, it was a lot like a chariot driver or a carriage driver whipping their horse. And I always wondered, why is this guy doing this to people? Obviously they hate him. They're not going to be okay with it, and so on. And then it didn't take long for me to sort of wrap my mind around exactly why he was doing it. Because then he would leave. The salespeople and the employees would complain, and they'd bitch about it, but then they'd get on the phone, make their phone calls, close some deals, and then email this guy copies of the invoices, and they're looking for a good job or that a boy or whatever, and they would get it. they would get it. They would send him an email and he would say, no, that's how to do it, blah, 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 blah. So there was a reward and a punishment. But what became really easy to see because he was conditioning just like a person would train a dog. And it was through really actions. And the stuff that we thought mattered didn't matter. It was all just a big ruse. So the process was he would, and the way I figured this out was that one day I pictured him in the whole process like a cartoon gorilla. And he would show up and the alpha gorilla would show up, go in and go, oh, 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 and beat his chest and push the other gorillas around, and they'd go, ah, ah, ah. And at some point, though, if you zoom out, you see this, and then you see that the action creates the reaction, and that's all he was paying attention to. So he would show up, whip everybody's ass, and then he would be rewarded because he would be sent emails of new invoices and closed deals, and so his actions led the result that he desired. So of course he's going to repeat it. So anyway, that's sort of the language of this place. So you have to pay attention to the things that you allow to happen and the causality model. The next part is that the numbers don't necessarily matter. You may have heard that the universe doesn't recognize money or value or quantity. And for the most part, that's true, and I have proof via another story. But those of you guys who are in business and negotiations and that kind of thing, this is really important, because once you're able to identify the program that the other entity is using, it's very simple to get yourself ahead and win. In 13 years, I had tons of repeat business, repeat clients, and I'm going to share just the story of one of them, but it's basically the same story with all of them. So this guy showed up. He was a new client, a landlord. He built houses and then rented them out, and he needed some renovations and whatnot. So I gave him a price, and I think it was something like $3,800. And this guy was like a real negotiator. He ended up getting it for something like $3,200 or $3,150, because he started out saying, "I'll give you $3,000 for it." And I was like, in retrospect, I was a pretty weak negotiator at the time. So then the next time I sort of learned, but I instead gave him the best deal I could right up front, and it was like $2,900. And I thought for sure that, he would see that he paid $3,200 last time, and this time I was doing it for $2,900. But that's not what happened. He said, "I'll give you $2,000 for it." And, we ended up meeting somewhere like $2,500 or $2,700 or whatever it was. I didn't have much room in the deal, but he appeared to be this just really hard-nosed negotiator. Okay, that was the illusion, because it didn't matter what number I gave him, as I later found out. The number that I originally quoted him was almost irrelevant. I probably could have told him 45,000, and it wouldn't have mattered. Now that might be a bit of an exaggeration, but I got to the point where I realized that whatever number I gave him, he was just going to round it down and offer me that much. So in 13 years, I gradually learned, and as I learned, the last time I quoted him a price, I put his pricing together, and it came out to be like $8,800, okay? And I said, that son of a bitch, if I give him this price at $8,800, he's going to offer me $8,000. So I rounded it up to $9,372 or something like that. And sure enough, he came in, I gave him the price, so that's going to be $9,372. And he hemmed and hawed, and then he said, "Will you take 9? I'll give you 9 for it." And then I hemmed and hawed, and I said, "Well, I shouldn't, but you know what? For you, absolutely, I will." And it was that easy. In the last like 3 or 4 deals that I gave this guy before I left there, that's how it worked. It was just so easy to sort of learn how it worked. And then in retrospect, back probably 20 years ago, I used to sell food door to door. And just to give you a point of reference, I sold like steak, chicken, and seafood, that kind of thing, frozen like Omaha steaks. And a good profitable sale for a salesperson was a box of steak. Say there's 10 steaks in a box for $70. That was like a real high quality, high profit deal in my perception. Then I found out that there was another guy in the company that was selling one box of steaks for between $300 and $400. And I was like, I didn't believe it at all, because I would sell 12 to 20 boxes for that price. Until I rode with him, and he just kind of randomly went to doors just like I did. But the difference was, when he got into the house and he was talking to the people, they were only judging him. They weren't judging the value of the food. They were just basing their decision on him. And the difference was, where I would say, that'll be $70, and maybe I had a quivery voice or wasn't so sure of the deal, or I was like beaming that I would make money at that price. He was saying $350, and he was saying it with a straight face that was the best, and it's a deal at that price because of the quality or whatever. And I never thought there was people that stupid out there until I watched him do this like 20 different times, 20 different people. The guy made thousands of dollars on maybe like 10 boxes of food, where if I sold 10 boxes, I would probably make 100 to 150 bucks. So it was amazing. But that's the program, is that sometimes with some entities, the universe doesn't recognize the number. Same thing when you're going looking for a job. Okay, you could probably go out and look for a job that pays $1 million a year. And as long as you were confident that you could do the job, and you were vibrating at the right frequency, you'd probably get the job. So, I mean, there's that type of illusion at work in this place. I thought that it was noteworthy to mention that it's more about you than it is about the other person. And I learned the last year that I worked at my place, my profit percentage nearly doubled, and my sales volume was negligibly, slightly less, but not much. I mean, obviously you're going to lose some customers, the ones that you don't want usually, when they hem and haw over the pricing or whatever. But for the most part, the profit percentage doubled, the money doubled. It was amazing. But anyway, so that kind of gets to the the overall process of things. And interestingly enough, when you look at right brain and left brain activity and the way that they work, the left brain, which is where we've been sort of shoved over to, is all about labels. That's a TV, this is a bed, those are walls, that's a table, this is a cup. Whereas the right brain tends to look at function, process. That's a device that projects an image to entertain us. That's a surface where people can lay comfortably. Those are walls that prevent wind from blowing on us, or creates an environment for us to live, and so on. So a lot of this place will sort of reveal itself to you when you shift over and look at function and process instead of outcome and labels. And the next part is that we have to increase the ability of our filter. Okay, when we wake up, we have that brief, week or two or month of nirvana where we have the answers and everything's crystal clear, and then it goes away. And the very search for that is what prevents it from staying or showing up again. But basically, what kind of happens is we start to fill our brain with all this other information, stuff that we never would have considered before. The problem is that we get kind of looping in circles on this stuff. And I found that one little clue or one little thing that we can do is really look at, whenever a piece of information is presented to you or given to you, think, before you give it any attention, think to yourself, how much is this going to benefit me in my life? Does this have anything to do with me, my situation in my life? I'll give you an example. There was a video or a news story or whatever about famous actors selling their soul to the devil, doing all of this nasty stuff in order to secure roles in the movies, and they're evil and blah, 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 blah. And it clicked to me. You know, I could look into that, and I could look at Bohemian Grove and listen to all the blood rituals that they allegedly do or possibly do or probably do or whatever, who cares. And you know, I could do that, but then in my existence right now, in the situation that I'm in, do I really care if Keanu Reeves has to suck a dick in order to get a role in a movie? Does that make me think that The Matrix is less entertaining? No. So it's kind of gets to that point where um, it doesn't matter. Some of the stuff just doesn't matter. You have to accept what you can and move on. And I think that that's important, because otherwise you're just going to be diving into these wormholes and rabbit holes of conspiracy theories, and there's a lot of them. You know, you get far enough, you don't know which way is up or down, left or right, and then the rabbit hole closes and you're stuck. So I'm going to start gearing this channel now more towards things that are going to benefit everybody, and that, like, real tangible results on a physical level. Stuff like, I can throw a couple ideas out to you, but things like learning a new language. Learning a new language is increasing your transmission and your reception ability, just sheer numbers, and being able to communicate with a different group of people that a lot of others aren't going to be able to communicate with. Stuff like that is useful. Stuff like trying to figure out, what the big conspiracy behind John F. Kennedy's assassination is. Okay, yeah, I think we can just sum that up in that, there's corruption in the government, there's false flags, and all sorts of manipulation that take place. But anything really much deeper than that, unless you're some sort of shadow operative, or that you have some sort of way of dealing with that or taking action against that, or to counter that or whatever, who cares? And maybe that's the place that we all have to get to. But in any event, just learning to put up the filter with this stuff is going to benefit everybody, because you can put your whole life into these ideas, and you'll still be sitting on the couch doing nothing. So it's there by design. It's another trap. And then the last part is, even when you do get some information, you have to be able to fact check it. Okay, Truth Dog put up a video about this fake YouTube truther. It was a great video. I watched the whole thing. But then anyway, so then because I did that, it shows up, another video by this guy shows up on my feed, and it was uploaded a week ago, and it said it was a story about Etsy banning orgonite, or orgone pyramids, from being sold in the Etsy shop. And it said that the government has intervened and basically shut down Etsy stores that sell this stuff. And the whole idea of the video was basically because there's reptilians in government and they hate this stuff, and that basically they put some bogus label on it as being radioactive and blah, 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 blah. And I watched a little bit of the video, and I just thought to myself, the bullshit meter started ringing. And I was thinking, like, does the government really care what Jane Miller is selling on Etsy? So I went to Etsy.com and punched in, typed in orgonite or orgone, and sure enough, there was 200-300 different vendors or people selling homemade orgone pyramids and so on, with no problem whatsoever. So while this kid may have stumbled onto a news story and then recycled it or regurgitated it without knowing, or whether what it really looked like to me was that he was actually selling orgone on his own, and he provided a link in his description, because I actually made a comment that said, wow, it's really interesting. I went to Etsy, and there's still 300 or 400 people selling this stuff. It seems weird that they would just pick on one person. Sort of just, kind of playing into it a little. But then I read some of the other comments, and they were like, whoa, man, if the government is shutting this stuff down, it must really work. I got to get me some of that. And of course, the kid has a link to his own orgone sales page or whatever. It's really quite brilliant. But the idea of that comment, or the purpose of this is that you have to look at what is going on, and when you see the thing, do a little bit of research or do a bit of search on your own, and then you're going to see how much misinformation and almost like counterintelligence is being thrown at you. And then the last part of this video, I'll sum this up really quick. You see it's getting kind of long. But the last part is that everything that you see on the computer or television is fiction. It's not even there. It's just a bunch of bits of information organized in a way and being projected to you. I guess it's another layer of what you consider your, quote, physical life is. The difference is that if you were to type a 200-page paper on the computer and save it, but then fail to print it, okay, so you've just got it on the computer, does that paper exist? The answer is no. Does the book exist? No. It's just a bunch of information that's decoded or encoded, waving around the air in wavelength, that the only way you can get to is through a computer. Now, the moment that you press print and that information is inked onto paper and it becomes a physical thing, then it exists, which leads me to money and this money scam. Okay, money has been altered from actually having physical paper and coins to using a debit card and having your work directly deposited into the bank account and so on. But here's the thing, okay? When your paycheck is just a number that goes from your employer into the bank, it does not exist. The universe doesn't recognize that as being money. It doesn't recognize you having it. So if you are on direct deposit and then you use your debit card to pay bills, there's basically, you have no money. There's no money or no currency or no paper Federal Reserve notes that you have possession of. It's when you actually cash the paycheck and have the bank give you the paper currency that the universe sees what you're getting in exchange for your work, your effort. It's the same thing with stock scams. When you have your money, say you take $5,000 and you invest it in stocks, and the stocks go up and it's worth $20,000, then you sell it, but you keep that money in that stock account. There's no recognition. There's no physical money being gained by you until you cash out, until you take the money from the bank and put it into paper or assets or buy something that has value that you actually possess. So that's a trick that's used against a lot of us, is that we think we have money when we have a number in a bank account. It's not money until you actually get the paper, until you actually get the coins, until you get the Federal Reserve notes and so on. And I can tell you that when you start cashing your paychecks and putting the paper money in envelopes and saving it, it will accumulate so much faster than when you just have that number in the bank account. So that's one little trick. The last part is about kind of about religion and so on, but I'm not going to get too much in. Actually, I'm not going to get into that in this video. I think I've probably put out enough information for now. But anyway, those are some of my thoughts, and I'm going to make it a point now to only upload high quality videos that have content that's usable, that will benefit people. Because we all want the same things. We want money, we want fame, we want power, we want love, we want relationships, we want excitement and fun. We want to be respected. We want to live what we consider a quality life. People are unique, but at the same time, they all want the same things. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with wanting any of them. We're brainwashed into believing that, searching for money is bad and blah, 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 blah. It's bad to want to have sex with some other girl if you're married. And you know what? I feel like those are all just sort of natural things that people are getting crucified for or blamed for or looked down on for. And the more of this programming that we get out of us, the more room we have to put in things that really matter and make a difference in our life. And you can exist or you can live. And I feel like that's the main difference here is people that are just existing are technically dead. And people that are living, you know the difference. You know when you felt alive compared to when you're just going through the motions. So I'm going to leave you with that thought. I look forward to reading your comments about this, especially if you've watched this whole video. That's awesome. And I guess that's it for now. I'll be posting another video here in the next day or two. But let me know what you think. We'll talk to you guys again soon.